Welcome to our South Metro Public Policy Candidate Forum. My name is Brent Pavia. I'm the president of the Bloomington Chamber, an affiliate of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber. We're pleased to be able to offer this forum to the business community and look forward to hearing the candidates' responses. We are also live streaming this session thanks to the City of Bloomington, and we welcome all of you online as well. I want to take a moment before we get started to thank our series sponsor, the Donaldson Company. We appreciate their support. Our rules for the forum this morning. Each district will be addressed separately and be allotted 30 minutes. We will take a 10-minute break between each district to clean and reset the dais for the next set of candidates. Each candidate will have a chance to make a 1-minute opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each of the questions. I will serve as timekeeper and hold up signs showing when the candidates have 30 seconds left, 15 seconds left, and stop. If you're in the middle of a statement, you can finish your thought, but let's try to stick to the 1 minute. We'll also be recording this session, and a link will be made available post-session. A reminder, the Chamber is a nonpartisan, non-endorsing organization, and the views expressed at this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the Chamber. All candidates who filed to run were invited to participate. The questions were created by our Bloomington Chamber Public Affairs Committee. I'll now turn over to our moderator, Robert Freeman, Government Relations Manager at Health Partners and Chair of the Bloomington Chamber Government Affairs Committee.
Oh, now it's on. Okay, now you can hear me okay, right? I can hear myself, so terrific. Well, thank you so much, and welcome to the Bloomington City Council Candidate Forum. Thank you so much for all of you for attending. Thanks to all of the candidates who are attending, and looks like we have some no-shows up here for the first race. So this may not be as exciting as maybe some of you were hoping, but I think we'll...
No one's on his way, so we'll
okay.
be joining shortly.
Okay, well... Maybe there'll be a little bit of friendly competition then. So I appreciate it. Normally we'd be standing up for these things. It feels a little bit weird sitting down, but I guess I'll sit down. And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna keep my mask off so that you can hear me fine. But thank you. So Lona, is it Lona or Lona? Lona, okay. Please feel free to get started with a 1-minute opening statement as to why you're running.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Lona D'Alessandro, and I'm running to be the next city council member for Bloomington's District 3. I live near Bryant Park with my wife, Sarah, and our trio of senior pets. I have my undergraduate degree in biology and my MBA, and I've spent the last 20-plus years in a variety of companies as an executive where my job has been to lead teams who bring new technologies to market. I'm also active as a lay leader for our church, most recently serving as the chair of our risk-taking mission and outreach team. I'm running for this seat to bring that kind of innovative leadership to City Council. I care deeply that we provide high-quality services and housing options for our seniors, that we continue to lead on environmental stewardship, and that we support our economic recovery post-pandemic by ensuring that businesses of all kinds want to make Bloomington their home. I'm looking forward to bringing new ideas to the table about how our community can grow and prosper, and look forward to working with all of you to achieve that. I'm grateful to be here with the Regional Chamber and our sponsor, Donaldson, and look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
All right. Well, we have 1 minute for question, and we have 1 minute for answers. And I think, like, if there's not anybody else here, then if we veer over a minute, it's probably not the end of the world. So let me start. First of all, Lona, thanks so much for being here. What do you see as the biggest problem facing your district?
I think that I'd like to think about them not so much as problems as much as opportunities for us to grow. But I understand the question. I've decided to run for this office for two major reasons. The first one had everything to do with being an advocate for our parks and natural spaces. It's why my family moved to Bloomington. And I think if we don't pay attention to our environmental challenges as it relates to climate change, the economic work that we do really doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, we have a larger, more existential problem to manage. So as an economic problem as well as an environmental problem, I'd like to see us continue to focus on that. I think Bloomington's done an okay job with that today, and I think that we can continue. I also know that there are challenges just on an everyday basis with things like traffic and congestion. I'd like to see the city become more walkable and bikeable so that employees and employers have better options for how folks get to work. Some of the mass transit work that's going on is helpful, and I think we can continue to work on that as well.
All right, terrific. Many Bloomington businesses face the issue of their employees not being able to afford to actually live in Bloomington. How do you think the city council should address this?
Well, I think one of the challenges that we have is we don't have in my opinion anyway, recently, a variety of housing options made available to folks that are at different price points to enable that. So, duplexes and quadplexes are in my neighborhood. If you go down Aldrich between 90th and 86th, you can see condos and quadplexes and duplexes, but they've not been built in the last 20 or 30 years here in Bloomington. Those are introductory pricing units, right? And they also solve one of the other major problems we have to consider here, which is maybe less important to the employee base, but more important to us as a city. And that is that we have seniors who are going to be looking to downsize and don't have affordable options in those price points either. And so we have to solve that by creating opportunities for a variety of housing plans. We do lots of big apartment complexes and we do a lot of single family and then that's about it. And I think we can be better at coming up with diverse options there.
You are doing a very good job of sticking to our minute limit. I don't think Brett's had to hold up a sign yet. What professional experience or business or professional experience do you have that you think you would bring to the office if you were elected?
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you are in the world of technology delivery or product management, but the way that we go about making products is something I've learned and honed over the last 5 years, 10 years or so, based on the idea of experimentation, which was great because I was grounded in my undergraduate in biology and so therefore already understood the kind of logical and orderly method of experimentation. But the idea is three things. Be passionate about your customer. Make sure that you are delivering a product that they actually want to buy or use, and make sure that it has value for you as an entity. And so I don't see how those principles can't be applied to the way that we run government today. You make strategic investments, you check with folks regularly about whether those investments are meeting or exceeding their needs, and then you ensure that it creates value for the city as a whole as well. And I think the opportunity to innovate and experiment in some unique areas is going to be very valuable for the city. So I'm looking forward to using those kinds of skill sets in this regard.
Terrific. What opportunities do you see for economic development specifically in your district?
Yeah, my district has a lot of great amenities to it, right? From all of our parks to the consolidation of the condos and senior living facilities, and also the businesses in the Normandale Lakes area and everything like that. What a vibrant and diverse community we have going there. I think what we don't do well as a city is tout the value of our outdoor living. We have more park space than anyone else I have ever seen. We don't have the ability to get from one to the other as well. And if we fix that, we can do a lot more to tout the value of that. But I see people using Normandale every day, all the time. And I want people to see it as an economic value as much as it is an environmental and a health-oriented value. And the more we can do to create ourselves as the same way that Blaine has that sports complex, and everybody thinks about Blaine as like the sports spot of Northern Metro, we can be the Metro area's premier outdoor living space and drive a lot of value both economically as well as for the health and welfare of the city.
Very good. This feels more like an interview than a...
That's okay. I'm okay with that.
I apologize.
No, that's all right. Go on.
Plenty more questions. Maybe if one of your opponents shows up, we'll do kind of the same thing too. As you've probably noticed, we have a bit of a labor shortage here in Bloomington, and many businesses are struggling to fill roles. How do you think the city can help?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I don't know that I have the best answer because, interestingly enough, in the world that I'm in, we don't have that problem, right? In the technology services space, we have plenty of folks. I mean, we may have to pay them a lot more than we used to and things like that, and that's okay. That's good for us as from an economic perspective. But when it comes to, some of the labor shortages that we have here, we have to look at it on a lens of a couple different factors. The first one being is, can they afford to live, right? I don't want to talk about living wage in the sense of like mandates from government, but living wages are valuable, right? They're kind of essential. If you do the math, $15 an hour times 40 hours a week times 50 weeks a year is $30,000. I don't know that anybody here, despite your, political preferences or whatever, would call that a living wage. And so do we have to do something about that as a city? I'm not sure, but we do have to do something about that as an economy. And secondarily, we have to make sure that people can get to work, right? If they want to work, they have to be able to get to work, and that means transportation. That's Dave.
All right.
Yeah.
Looks like we have another candidate that will make this a little bit more exciting. Give you a chance to drink some water. Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for coming. We have gotten going without you. So, just to kind of orient you, we let Lona Arntz give her opening statement, and then we asked her some of the questions. So I think what I'll do is I'll let her be quiet for a little bit, and I'll kind of do the same thing with you. Ask the same questions, let you give the opening statement, and then we'll kind of get into more of a back and forth, hopefully. So. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a 1-minute opening statement on why you're running for office.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. My name is David Clarke. I've been a Bloomington resident for 18 years now. Small business owner, also commercial pilot. Raised my family here, moved here from Minneapolis to get away from all the problems of a big city. But as those problems have been following us here, I decided it's time to run, especially with the incumbent councilman not running. So, my concerns in the city are things that concern a lot of people. It's the public safety, it's the physical responsibility, it's also the governing for the residents. These are things that, people have been talking about with me for a while, and I've noticed them myself, and it's the reasons that I'm decided to run. So, hope to bring my background and experience to Bloomington and help take it from good to great. I think we have a lot of potential, but we're not living up to our potential. So I think that I can definitely help with that.
All right. I have some questions for you, and Alona already answered them. So we'll go through as far as she got, and then I think we'll kind of go back to the traditional format. So what do you see as the biggest issue facing your district?
Well, I think the biggest issue facing the district, specifically inside of Bloomington, I think is the long-term financial health of the city. I think that now times are relatively good. We got rising property values. We've got some federal money. Interest rates are low. But what if that starts changing? Inflation is at our door. Property values are not always going to go up. In fact, property values, homeowners are taking more and more of the burden of property taxes because the commercial estate is down. So I think that stability, the ability to protect our residential zoning, That's being threatened as well. People want to maintain their lifestyle. They came to Bloomington for a reason, and they see it changing around them, and that's not good. We need to maintain the high quality of life and the livability in our city, and that's why I'm running.
What experience, business experience or professional experience do you have that you would bring to the office if you were elected?
Well, I've run numerous companies in my lifetime. I've had my own company now for 12 years. I know that money doesn't grow on trees. I have to fight for every dollar. I have to pay taxes. If I can't pay taxes, I have to set up a payment plan and pay interest. There's no free lunch. And yet we see, a city council and a mayor that feels like there's free lunch. And there is no free lunch. We need to get our house in order before things turn down, because, this rosy picture we're in right now, it's not going to last forever. If you see what's on the news, if you see interest rates licking at our front doorsteps, like waves starting to crash up on the doorstep, that is next. If anything happens to our dollar on the international scene, the stability of our dollar, that's going to affect interest rates. There's a number of things that that I bring experience to in terms of being able to run a small business and that acumen.
I should note that outside there is a free breakfast provided by the chamber.
But somebody paid for it.
Yes, member dues. So thank you. We appreciate our members. Many Bloomington businesses face the issue of their employees not being able to afford to actually live in the city. How do you think the city can help address this?
Well, I'm really big on single-family ownership, and programs to get people into single-family homes. I think that is what we need to do. We don't need to be building dozens of apartment complexes, dozens of high-rises with high-density housing. That is not the way to get people established in their community, to be stakeholders in the community. We need stakeholders. There's nothing like somebody being a homeowner, because they got to care for that property. They got to care for that. They got to pay they see the property taxes that they pay. Whereas if they are simply renting, that's all buried in the cost. They're not as aware of that. So we need to get stakeholders. We have a lot of seniors who are transitioning out of their single-family homes. We need to come up with programs to help rehabilitate those homes and make those homes livable for the next generation. Young families, immigrants, people that are moving into the area. Single-family home ownership is where it's at, and I think the city can do a good job in sponsoring programs to help people get into those.
What opportunities do you see for economic development specifically in your district, District 3?
I see a lot of opportunities, and I see a lot of opportunities that aren't being taken. I see a commercial district that needs to be refurbished and brought new companies brought in. We need to be recruiting companies to come into our city. City leadership needs to be on the phone 5 to 10 hours a week talking to companies from out of the city, out of state. I remember about 25 years ago, there was a big campaign to get companies to move to South Dakota. And it was like there was billboards, it was a marketing campaign, you heard ads on the radio, and guess what? They got a lot of companies to move to South Dakota. And why aren't we doing that for Bloomington? Why aren't we bringing jobs here to be able to make Bloomington a thriving business community, as well as, startups, incubators, that type of thing, to be able to sponsor new businesses. So I think there's a lot of untapped potential in terms of new business in Bloomington. That's one of the biggest things that we need to do, is to revitalize business in Bloomington.
All right, and then last question, and then we'll kind of return to the traditional format. As you've probably noticed, we have a labor shortage in Bloomington, and many businesses are struggling to fill roles. How can the city help?
Well, I think the city needs to be working with our community colleges, with our high schools, to encourage people to go into trades. Not everything requires a 4, a 6, or 8 year college degree. I think that I know that things have been going on in that regard, but on the other hand, our schools are failing too. Our school graduation rate in Bloomington is less than 80% now. It's 79%. 21% of our students in Bloomington are not even graduating from high school. That's a crisis, folks. And those people are going to end up in the workforce, but on the lower end, making 10 to 12 bucks an hour for a very long time. So, we've got to work with our schools, we've got to work with our community colleges to be able to get people to live here and work here. And there's nothing wrong with that. We should, encourage that. But I think that's what the city can do, and really, help those people to get established in the workforce in good paying jobs that are going to, help them to be thriving citizens here in Bloomington.
All right. Lona, you'll be pleased to know that it's your turn again. So you mentioned the South Dakota campaign. Lona, this is a question for you, but it'll come back to you too. If you were in an elevator and you had 30 seconds to convince, if you were in an elevator with a CEO and you had 30 seconds to convince them that they should move their business to Bloomington, what would you tell them?
I would tell them three things. One, that you can't beat the location of Bloomington. It is one of the best places to get to and from anywhere else in the metro area, as well as to and from any of the other major corridors. Number two, that the quality of life for the employees that would move here to work in that company is of the highest regard. I moved my family here and would want people to understand that despite the fact that I've worked downtown and I've worked out on the west side of town and everything else, I chose to live in Bloomington because of its quality of life. And thirdly, I would say that the opportunities here are really incredible when it comes to growth. We have not just growth from a physical sense, but growth from an economic sense as well. There's a reason that the Twin Cities area has more Fortune 500 headquarters than anywhere else in the world, right? And we should capitalize on that for Bloomington.
I don't know if that was exactly 30 seconds, but I guess I'm not really that. Let's.
Sorry, that's true.
That's fine.
My bad.
It was a long elevator ride. And same question. You want people calling executives. So what would you tell them to say?
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to agree with Lana or not, but I do agree with her.
I think it's allowed.
Yeah, and I do agree with her. I mean, I moved here because of location. I can get anywhere in the cities within 10 to 15 minutes. What other major metropolitan area can you do that? So it's location, it's amenities, parks, used to be schools, but, we got some work to do there. I've got a great community college here. It's just a city that's very well laid out, and I think there's a ton of potential. People are friendly, people are kind. It's a good place to live. And so I would tell a CEO, listen, move here for the location, proximity to the airport, Mall of America, business district, and access basically to the entire metro area in a place that's really good to live and work.
All right. Have some questions from the audience as well. So let's kind of move into some of those. I'll let you go first. What do you feel are the responsibilities of city government?
Well, city government, like any government, it's limited. It should be limited. It should be limited to water, sewer, safety, parks, and other services like that. But we see a city that one of our main services was the DMV right across the street. And of all the things that they could cut, they decided to cut the DMV. That was a vital service for seniors, for single moms, for working families, as a time saver. I myself came down here many times where I could come in and come out. They had a fast track lane. If you already had the bill from the state, you could just walk in and pay. Now God knows what you have to do. So that's just one example of an amenity that it is the city's responsibility, and yet that very amenity got cut. So our city is going in the wrong direction in terms of what its priorities are. The amenities or the services should be revolved around public safety, the parks, the infrastructure, and then stay away from this other, non-essential stuff. Let nonprofits or churches or other entities do that, if at all.
All right, terrific. Same question for Lona.
So 80% of our budget dollars already goes to those things, right? Public safety, public works, parks and recreation, community development. We don't actually have a whole lot left in there to mess around with when we talk about superfluous services. But even if we did, we're doing a good job, in my opinion, of making sure that the basic services that we have to offer as a city are being met. And it is proven out by both our community and our business polling. Having said that, though, we have to recognize that infrastructure, as a quote-unquote word, is changing, right? As we've moved from a largely manufacturing-oriented economy to a largely service-oriented economy, there are different services and infrastructure elements that need to be considered. And I think that the city has an opportunity to work there. Ultimately, though, what it comes down to is if you leave it up to nonprofits or churches or mosques or anyone else, you end up not serving everyone. And at the end of the day, there are people in this city who need to be served, and that sometimes that's government's job to make that happen.
All right. Lona, do you trust and respect the election process in Bloomington?
I do, yeah. I wouldn't be running if I didn't, I don't think. I actually think that, first off, Bloomington has one of the highest rates of return on at least in even year elections. Plug for please vote in the off-year elections. But the truth is, we do a good job here of maintaining integrity. I am happy that my wife is an election judge. Lots of you in the audience, I know your spouses are election judges or you do that yourself. Those services are nonpartisan, they're important, and they're held with the highest regard in this city. And I've been impressed ever since I started voting here back in 2008 with the process, its efficiency, and its integrity. No issues.
Same question for you, David.
I guess, I'm cautious. I mean, after the last election, we saw a lot of concerns over that election, and, did Bloomington have any part of that? I don't know. But I would say that, for the most part, I trust the process here. I do know that I've seen some very qualified people be turned down to be election judges, and that's a concern for me. In fact, one was sent a letter and said, even though you've lived here 50 years and you're highly qualified, we don't need you, but you can come in as a substitute at the last minute with no training and be an election judge if we need you. That's not right. So that, to me, puts a question mark. Are we really training the people that are going to be coming in at the last minute? So like anything, like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. I'd say the same thing about the election process here in Bloomington.
All right. This is a more specialized question, how do we plan on making our carbon neutral goals by 2060, and what are we doing to make renewable energy available to low-income communities? And let's give that to Lona first.
Okay. Yay, one of my favorite topics. So at the end of the day, this is where I think the city, to the last question, has an opportunity to be very useful, right? Our carbon targets, we are behind on our carbon targets right now as a city. There are easy things that we can do, in my opinion. Yes, they take investment, but this is investment that is, I can't imagine why we would say it isn't a good one. Eden Prairie has its first electric police car. We can have a police force that's got electric vehicles. We have opportunities for solar arrays that support small city areas. We have opportunities to incentivize housing to have solar, including using the work that we're doing on the Opportunity Housing Ordinance to add different incentives in that. So maybe the goal is not an indoor garage anymore, but it's solar panels on the roof, right? We can make some of those changes as a city to incentivize the right behavior here as it relates to renewable energies, and I'm looking forward to working on that.
I think there's obviously room for improvement with where we are. We're not where we need to be. There's new technologies coming out all the time. Electric sounds appealing for homes. For vehicles, it's a little complicated. It takes a lot of juice to charge up those vehicles. If people started buying electric vehicles en masse, I don't think our city grid could handle it. I've seen estimates that it takes a lot of electricity to charge a vehicle. However, I think the city could start with the city vehicles. I don't know how many vehicles the city has between police, public works, other services, but Let's say it's 50 to 100 vehicles. Start there. Start with the public transportation. Start with those things, and start with these other incentives, like Lana said, for solar, both in commercial and residential housing. That's low-hanging fruit, and we could be busy with that for the next 5 or 10 years, and do a lot towards reducing our carbon footprint here.
And then, similar vein, what more do you think the city of Bloomington should do to encourage the use of transit? And let's give that to David first.
Well, I think transit is something that obviously has to be coordinated with other parts of the city. It's part of a larger system, so a lot of planning has to go into that. I think there can be some marketing or some other types of incentives that go into that. It needs to be able to go to places where people are going. And we need to constantly be looking at that. I think the light rail system continues to develop in the Twin Cities. I saw, out in Eden Prairie, they're putting in the line out there. So, I think that there's definitely things that we can do to improve upon that. I think there's also some ride sharing capabilities as well. I mean, I was overseas recently, and there's, electric cars for rent, where you rent them by the hour. And you get around, you do your chores, whatever, you go do your shopping, you come back, you kind of use the car on demand. Maybe something like that would be interesting. So, mass transit, yeah, I mean, it's a good idea, but it's got to work. It's also got to pay for itself. The taxpayer shouldn't be stuck with the bill. It should be something that would be, paid for somehow.
Lona, and then this is going to be the last question, and then we'll go to closing statements.
Great. Yeah, I mean, Dave's come up with some great ideas, right? This is a not one size fits all kind of approach, right? I live near 86th and Lyndale, and I can't get a bus to the Mall of America, and I can't get a bus to Highland. Either way, no matter which direction I go in the city, and that's a problem, right? And I think we can do something easy about that. I'm not talking about big old buses and everything like that. Commuter type buses and things like that allow for it. Even on my campus, right, when I went to college, there was a bus that took you around. It was called the Loop, and it took you around the campus, right? So there are ways that we can address this, I think, in meaningful and valuable ways. I would lean on Hennepin County. I would lean on the Metropolitan Council to start serving this city. We spend a lot more, we give them a lot more money than we get back, right? And what I'd like to see us getting for that is some focus on ways to help us improve our mass transit.
All right, terrific. Well, since we have a couple of minutes of extra time, if you want to take a couple of minutes for your closing statements, that would be great. We'll start with David and go to Lena.
Well, again, I think that we have a really good city. I think we have a lot of things that are working well. I think we've had successes in our city. The Mall of America, our infrastructure. I see roads being built. In fact, I was a little late today because Penn is jammed up. Had to run back and take the freeway. So there are definitely a lot of good things. I also see a city, though, that's off track with its priorities. And I see a city that really needs to refocus and start focusing on getting good businesses to base here, new businesses to base here, and focus on economic growth. If you focus on economic growth, then a lot of these other problems go away. You don't have to worry so much about the budget. You don't have to worry so much about the spending. But in the situation we're at now, where commercial real estate is down, more of the burden is going on to the homeowners, when's the last Fortune 500 company to move to Bloomington? When's the last Fortune 1000 or Fortune 2000 company to move to Bloomington? We've had a few here and there, but I think there's a lot more that we could be doing there. I think there's more that we can be doing with public safety, for our police department to work with our schools to reinstill respect for the law. That took a big hit last year, and thank God we weren't hit like Minneapolis was, literally, but we're still feeling the effects of that. And we're not immune. In fact, public safety is a big concern here to a lot of people, especially on the east side. And then this whole business of governance for the residents. There's a lot of residents here that feel disenfranchised because this city council and this mayor and this city manager govern for small groups of people and small special interest groups and not for the city as a whole. And that's a big problem. When you lose the trust of the people, you lose your ability to govern. And I think that the city council and the mayor and the city manager need to reinstill that trust start governing more towards from the center, and really governing for all the residents, and stop working with these issues that end up polarizing the community. I want to be a unifier and be able to bring people together, and that's what I'm going to do.
All right, thank you. Well, Lona, you got to open, and now you get to close.
Thanks. Thank you for moderating today, Robert. Appreciate it. Thanks again to the Regional Chamber and to Donaldson for having us at this forum this morning. I do believe that I'm uniquely qualified to address the opportunities that are facing our community today, and I am excited to partner with all of you and the Chamber's members as the next City Council member for District 3. I want to serve our city by working to diversify and grow our economy through innovation. I think we can think creatively about incentives, credits, permits, and other adjustments to remove barriers that might prevent revitalization post-pandemic. And I think we should take a long-term lens on that and make sure we are attracting the kinds of businesses we want to attract here, both large and small. When we think about projects like the Lindale Avenue retrofit or 90th and Penn, right? And we talk about how we can make those places better, both as hubs for innovation and economic activity, as well as quality of living. I also want to make sure that we continue to focus on our environmental sustainability, not only as a health imperative, but as an economic one. Once again, I'd love to see the city become known as the premier destination for outdoor living in the South Metro. And I think we have the tools and we have the natural spaces, and we just need to put our heads together and come up with a way to make that work. And lastly, I do want to make sure we continue to create these housing opportunities for everyone, regardless of their life stage, right? And make sure that we're attracting a vibrant and talented workforce. For years, I've worked as a business executive to make communities in the Twin Cities more prosperous, and have fought on behalf of our residents as a civic leader, a church organizer, and a volunteer. As your city council member, I am ready to help grow and nourish Bloomington, putting my experience and relationships in the area to work for all of you. If you live in District 3, I'm asking to be your first choice vote, and I invite you all to visit www.voteforlona.com for more information about me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both of you. And now we're going to take a 10-minute break whilst we kind of get everything settled. So please join me in a round of applause for the candidates. And I have 8:45 by my watch, so if our fourth candidate shows up, we'll just send her up here, and I guess we'll do what we did last time in some respect. Thank you so much for being here, candidates, for District 4. Sorry, I'm just kind of a little bit of trouble keeping track. So we're going to start this morning by having each of you give a 1-minute opening statement to just describe why you're running for office. And then we'll get into some questions and answers, some of which were submitted by the Public Affairs Committee at the Chamber and some of which are submitted by the audience. We'll try and keep answers to a minute long as well if we can, and we have an excellent timekeeper here who will wave his 30-second and his 15-second and a stop sign at you when it's time. So please pay attention to Brent. And then we'll do closing statements at the end. And then we'll switch out and we'll do the last forum for the at-large seat. So with that, let's start. Ladies first. Angela, do you want to go ahead and just give us a quick minute on why you're running for office? And that would be great.
I am running for city council. I've never been interested in politics. However, since I've moved to Bloomington in the last year and a half, I've been following the city council, and I feel like a lot of things need to change. The city council is going in a direction that does not represent all residents of the city, to include small businesses and large businesses. So I want to be the voice for the small person in Bloomington. I want to be the voice for the resident that has some serious concerns, and speak and fight for the residents of Bloomington. I have no desire to further my political career, just want to represent the city of Bloomington. I want to fight to keep our taxes low. I want to fight to keep everything equal for the residents in Bloomington and represent you. Thank you.
All right, let's go next to Patrick.
Excellent. Hi there, Councilmember Patrick Martin. I'm running for my second term on the Bloomington City Council. And I'm doing so because I've seen, like so many of you, firsthand the tremendous possibilities before our city. I first got involved in local government after having spent a career, and I still am working in the field, working with churches and nonprofits throughout the region, helping equip families with the tools that they need to be successful. Which got me started. I got involved with the Advisory Board of Health, looking at how families in Bloomington are needing additional resources, how we can better support folks, as well as serving on the Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission, seeing what kind of amenities can we put in place to help build a healthier, more vibrant community overall. And I'm so proud over my first term to have helped empower residents to help guide the city's future more effectively, helped steer additional investment to some of our East Side neighborhoods that really need it, and overall help bring this community together in a very divisive time to move us forward in a way that will keep us at the forefront of leadership and development in the state of Minnesota.
All right, and Victor.
My name is Victor Rivas. Thank you for allowing me to try to represent our neighborhoods. The reason that I'm running is because I have participated in politics for years. Never to the degree that I'm trying to do at this point in my life. However, because of the...
Victor, can you switch your mic on?
Oh, sorry.
Tap the button. There we go.
Can I regain my time, please? Yeah,
Sure.
thank you. Yeah, that's how politicians speak, right? All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyway,
Good instinct.
the reason that I'm running for the city council is because I want true representation for our area. Small businesses and residents of District 4 have brought their concerns up to me as I have been knocking on doors for most of the district at this point. And they're concerned with high taxes, not being represented as they desire to be represented. They don't agree with the decisions that the city has taken on their behalf. And after paying attention to what the district meetings were about for a couple of years, I finally decided to run because of the statements that I heard from some members of the city council, literally saying that they didn't care what the outcome was in the fall, which meaning the election day, that they were going to vote against the will of the residents in District 4. And that was the turning point for me. Thank you.
All right. It's 3, right? Let's start with Patrick. What professional or business experience do you have that you would bring to the office if you were elected?
Yeah, thank you. So as I mentioned, I've spent my entire career in the nonprofit sector with organizations a variety of sizes, whether it was a small Catholic church in a rural community that needed to renovate its gym, being able to help them get campaigns up and running and rally the community, all the way up till now. I work for the third largest food bank in the United States, supplying 80% of the food to food shelves across the state of Minnesota. And throughout that time working in development, I've developed a strong skill set of identifying community need and being able to rally partners with the right skill set in order to address it. For example, when I was working over at Salvation Army, over at the West 7th Street Food Bank, where I first really got a feel for the need in communities like Bloomington. We were getting folks all that way up to St. Paul to get a bag of groceries. We needed substantial additions to our youth center. It was the biggest need in the community. And being able to have built relationships with folks across the Twin Cities was able to rally donors, both small and large, to come together, renovate that facility, and provide the youth in that neighborhood with new recreation facilities for decades to come.
All right, same question for Angela.
Can you repeat it, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. What professional experience do you have that you would bring to the office if you were elected?
Professional experience. I've been in multiple management positions, so I have been responsible for budgetary duties as well as large go-lives or conversions with medical record conversions. I also work with a medical device company, so I'm responsible for multiple sites, maintaining their product budgets, bringing in money, campaigning to get donations, getting buy-in, consumer buy-ins, executive buy-ins. So budgeting is easy for me. Getting consumers to support ideas is easy for me, and being fiscally responsible is easy for me. So You have to be fiscally responsible in the medical field for a hospital to make money. There's a lot of areas that they lose money in, and that is my expertise. So I want to bring it to Bloomington.
Thank you. And same question for Victor.
What I would bring to Bloomington is the experience I have managing large and multiple accounts at the same time. I have the opportunity to manage up to $16 million budgets for food production and hotels, and all over the country. I had the privilege to travel all over the country for the last 11 years for a large British company, and the adherence to budgets in every one of the accounts that I managed was of the utmost importance. And that's the experience that I would bring to Bloomington, since most of the constituents that I have spoken to have major concerns about taxing and worried about the high taxes that the city has been implementing, or the plan to implement even higher taxes at this point. I will bring my experience to make sure that we control how we spend the money the city brings into their coffers.
All right, thank you. This is a question from the audience. With the new Parks Master Plan completed, what do you see as your vision for Valley View Park? And let's start with Victor.
That's one of the subjects that I got involved with last year to a high degree. And the reality is that I might have my own ideas in regards to that. I do like the city to move to a more modern version of it. However, at the same time, I think we get elected to not represent our own ideas, but the ideas of the residents of the areas that we get elected to represent. So in regards to that park, is that most people want the park to remain as is. It is true that it needs some remodeling, and that's what we should concentrate on, remodeling the park and not trying to build a community center that nobody wants. That said, there are other opportunities, perhaps other locations that could be possible if the need for modernization exists. Other than that, the park should remain as is.
All right, same question for Patrick.
Yeah, and I appreciate this opportunity to clarify a little bit, because I've seen some confusion on social media. And I think it's a good example of my leadership style. Throughout 2019, there was a lot of discussion about a large community center at Valley View Park. And honestly, I just didn't think we did the proper community outreach to the neighborhood to explain the recreational needs that facility would meet, how the cost structure was going to be put together to lower the burden to residents. So in December of 2019, when it came to signing a contract with a consultant to move forward with that project, I put it on the line with my colleagues as a brand new council member, first time elected official, and said, I didn't think this is right. And thankfully, my colleagues said, yeah, that doesn't seem right. This isn't the right project for us, and we moved on. And a small group of very, very loud folks on social media demanded, nope, we need an official vote on that. I said, I don't think that makes sense. I get your passion, but we don't vote on things not to do. I abstained on that vote because I didn't think it made sense. And in the years since, there continues to be a drumbeat that we're going to knock down Valley View Park and put up a community center. It's simply not true. Because we listen to you, we're going to make the improvements folks want to see in their neighborhoods.
All right, same question for Angela.
So I have actually spoken to quite a few residents that live over in that area. I live over in that area. Everybody that I've spoken to likes Valley View the way it is, and every time I walk by there, almost every area of the park is being utilized. They don't want it to change. I do feel like we need to make necessary improvements to keep the park functional and safe and modernized, but we don't need to put a community center at Valley View. There's plenty of other green spaces that we could utilize that are open green spaces that don't need remodeling, that would accommodate a community center. But Valley View is great the way it is. And we don't need to spend $85 million to improve Valley View. The residents don't want it. That's a huge tax burden on the residents. It's a huge tax burden on the small businesses, the people that would be responsible for paying that renovation. And the residents don't want it. And there's a lot of residents that didn't realize that it was back on the docket, which is terrible. So.
All right. Let's start with Angela for this next question. As you probably noticed, we have a labor shortage in Bloomington, and many businesses are struggling to fill the roles. What can the city do to help?
I'm not really sure what the city can do to help that. I know that the extra unemployment bonuses didn't help that because people would make more money on unemployment versus staying in a position or looking for a new job. It's not the city's job to pay unemployment bonuses. We should be promoting people working versus being on unemployment. Unemployment is a helping hand, it's not a lifestyle. So the unemployment bonuses need to end, and we need to allow the business owners and the community that hires people to be able to have access to those people on unemployment. We should end unemployment. We should be doing things to promote people to get out there and apply for all the many jobs that are open.
All right, let's do the same question to Victor.
Lowering taxes, that should do the trick. If you lower taxes on businesses or even residents, there is the opportunity for more spending, and that creates jobs in itself. To help people that either want to work or companies that are seeking employees, I can tell you firsthand, right now I have 15 openings in my department in the company that I work for. In my department alone, in the account that I work, we have about 65 openings right now, and people don't want to work, and the reason is because, like Angela said, is the incentives that have been given to them. But the one thing that I would do is lower the taxes to benefit the businesses, local businesses, small businesses, to hire more people, and that will create the extra revenue and the jobs that are needed for people that are unemployed at the moment.
All right, and then last but not least, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's ensuring the livability and affordability of the community that these businesses are calling home. And first of all, making sure that we've got affordable housing options across the spectrum, owner-occupied, rental, and we've taken huge strides in that area. Our Opportunity Housing Ordinance has gotten red tape out of the way to reduce costs, which developers can then pass along to folks renting those units. Our Affordable Housing Trust Fund is preserving the naturally occurring affordable housing we have in this community and keeping it in decent shape to allow some of these families to stay put in our community. I think that'll go a long way towards helping to fill some of these positions. But we've also got a huge opportunity in terms of the education centers we have in Bloomington. We've got 2 strong high schools. We've got the largest community college in the state of Minnesota. We've got a premier health sciences university in the middle of our city, which it has been brought up before, this notion of alignment. If we have positions to fill, let's come together to collaboratively to make sure we're training a workforce that can fill those jobs and that in turn can afford to live in our city long-term, put down roots, raise kids, and start this cycle over again.
All right, thank you very much. Start with Angela. Angela, what opportunities do you see for economic development in your district?
I think for economical development is we need to give small business owners some rebates, anything that we can do to encourage them to continue their small business in Bloomington or to bring their small business to Bloomington. Like, for example, the city should not have imposed the cigarette I don't even know what it was, where they banned cigarettes. That's not the city's job. So we lost businesses by doing that. There are small businesses that are being hurt by that. So if you want to have small businesses in Bloomington, you need to allow them to come here and function. As long as it's a legal product that they're selling, it's not the city's job to impose regulations on that. So make them feel like Bloomington's welcoming. Give them something to move here for. Incentivize them, lower their taxes, give them rebates. Small business owners are Bloomington individuals, so just trying to make a living. Let's figure that out and make them feel welcome in Bloomington.
Same question for Patrick.
Yeah, just to clarify, we didn't ban cigarettes. There was flavored vaping because we saw kid rates going through the roof. But
I don't smoke, so I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm very proud. Coming out of the pandemic, we've got a huge opportunity to help businesses get on their feet and in turn help revitalize some of our older commercial areas. We've all seen the intersections across town, Old Cedar, Old Shock, Portland American, empty spots in these older strip malls. One innovative thing that we moved forward with was called the Neighborhood Development Center. We invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into microloans for small businesses, additional capacity to collaborate with county programs in order to provide advice to businesses trying to get up off their feet. Essentially, while it isn't an incubator program in one building in one place, it's a citywide incubator inviting anybody with a good idea that they want to try out, that they want to help revitalize this community with. We want to equip them with the tools that they need to be successful, just like we want to equip our families across this city as well. In partnership with larger efforts like the Lyndale Avenue retrofit to create lovely, walkable areas where folks would want to visit some of these smaller businesses, pocket parks to spend time in, it'll go a long way.
All right, same question for Victor. What opportunities do you see for economic development in the district?
Yeah, our district actually has great opportunities, areas that could be developed and modernized. I do see that. I don't necessarily agree 100% with what you had to say. However, I do see opportunity in some of the areas in District 4. The one thing that I need to, and I don't like to rehash it, but the fact is that we pass ordinances against the vaping. It has hurt a lot of the businesses. And I have spoken to these business owners, and they feel that it's not the loss of revenue due to the vapor that they resent, it's the fact that everybody that went in and bought a small amount of the vaping spent 60 to 75% on other items that they saw at their stores, and that created, they're losing money, so they're planning on moving out of the city. That's just pushing business away rather than attracting businesses. I do have a lot more to say on that subject. However, I don't have the time, but that's the fact. We're hurting businesses.
All right, thank you. Let's start with Patrick. Patrick, if you're in an elevator and you had 30 seconds to convince the CEO standing next to you to move their business to Bloomington, what would you tell them?
I would say Bloomington's at the center of everything. We're at the center of the largest highway interchanges in the state of Minnesota, allowing easy transport to your location, not only for suppliers, but for workers. We're next to the largest international airport in the region as well, bringing in millions and millions of travelers. Our recreation amenities are second to none. We've got more parks and green space than all of our neighbors combined. And that's not even counting the largest urban wildlife refuge right on our borders in the United States. And I think overall, I'm very proud that our businesses are recognizing this. Every single year, we consistently have half the average levy increase of any other metro our size, or even close to our size, in the state of Minnesota. And it's registering. 92% of businesses surveyed in Bloomington over the last few months said there's an excellent business climate in this city. We have, again, the educational institutions that I mentioned, providing an educated and talented workforce in order to fill those empty positions. And it's what has allowed us to weather this pandemic as effectively as we had.
Same question for Angela.
I think Bloomington is actually an excellent city. That's why I moved here 4 years ago. And for a CEO to want to move into Bloomington, I think that's great. We also need to, as a city council, and I don't know if they do that currently, I apologize, I've only been following for a year and a half. We need to collaborate with the business owners in Bloomington. What can we do to help them? How can we help them be successful? How can we promote them? What can we do as a city to drive businesses, to help them grow, to make them feel welcome in Bloomington? And yes, Bloomington is a great area. There's lots of resources. That is the one thing I like about this. I can get to Fairview Ridges in 10 minutes. I can get to Southdale in 10 minutes. I can get downtown in 20 minutes. So the location is perfect, but I do feel that we need to focus more on individuals and not what can Bloomington soak out of them. So that's my take on that.
And Victor, what do you tell your CEO in your elevator?
Location, absolutely. There is no doubt. I moved to Bloomington from Eden Prairie because the airport was close, and I used to travel quite often. Location, and the opportunities are there. Again, tax incentives, not just to businesses, but also to the residents. I think from my experience in the last 13 years, taxes have kind of gone up tremendously. I don't understand exactly to what extent that's being used to benefit the city as a whole rather than special interest groups. I have some knowledge in regards to that, but I don't quite get why the taxes and the expenses that we really don't need to focus on maintenance or infrastructure, safety. That's all the city has to take care of, nothing else. The rest is for the state or the county to take care of.
All right, thank you. There's a question here from the audience. What can we do to make renewable energy available to low-income communities? And let's start with Victor.
I spent 15 years in the sustainability section of my company. And I can tell you with certainty that every effort that we did and large investments, traveled all over the country to see innovation and stuff, it's almost impossible to make it work. Incentives to people to have solar energy or any other energy available out there will not create what we all dream about. The reality is that in order to get electric cars and all that, we need oil to produce electricity. So I can dig into it. It's been something that I dedicated a lot of time to work with, and regardless of what we did, it didn't create the outcome that we were looking for. Okay, so like the previous candidates mentioned, there is opportunity, but I can't tell you with certainty what we can do to help people with a lower income to improve their energy efficiency.
All right, same question for Patrick.
Yeah, I appreciate that we got this question because obviously we can't do nothing and we need to move pretty swiftly here. I mean, we at council meetings are looking at new investments in something as straightforward as stormwater infrastructure, but it's hard to predict because the 500-year storm is now the 100-year storm, and the 100-year storm is now the 5-year storm, and that increases costs dramatically. We need to be tearing out and replacing pipes because it's raining more and more and more due to climate change. I think a quick place to start is helping to increase efficiency. So expanding our sustainability commission programs, like doing home energy audits to help reduce overall energy usage before we're looking at spending on infrastructure. Beyond that, looking at evolving city code. So at what point does it become cost feasible to start mandating electric vehicle wiring in a home to be able to facilitate EV chargers when those homes go up? And longer term, in our larger commercial and multifamily units, how are we increasing things like insulation efficiency so we're not just passing those costs on to folks renting those spaces, but actually improving the buildings overall? Then we can look at broader infrastructure for the supply.
All right.
If I may answer to that, I mean, that it's coming close to mandating people what to do in their own homes and in their own personal lives, and that's what we're not about. This nation is not meant to be that way. It's supposed to be a voluntary thing. I mean, we all want to better our environment.
I do want to
However,
give Angela a chance to answer the question too, and we're kind of running short of time here. So can I?
My apologies.
That's okay. I didn't want to take time away from the other candidate. So go ahead, Angela. And this will be the last question, then we'll get into.
So I actually do agree. It's not the city's job to mandate. If somebody wants an electric car, great. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility and cost that comes with an electric car, like putting in the charging station. The Bloomington actually does do a nice job with having charging stations publicly. Kohl's and other stores have installed those charging stations, but I don't feel that it should be a mandated for new housing going up because not everybody's going to have an electric car. I'm not sure a lot of people have actually done the research into the cost and the effect on the environment for electric vehicles, solar, lithium batteries. I mean, that's a whole nother road we could go down, and it's not what people think. But could you repeat like I went off on a tangent.
What are we doing to make renewable energy available to low-income communities?
Okay, so if a low-income family is interested in installing solar or some renewable energy source, I think that we could offer them rebates. That would be a viable use of our taxes versus some frivolous spending that we're currently doing. Offering them a rebate or a reduced cost for home improvements to keep the energy, in the winter, insulation, reduced cost, window replacements, whatever they need to do to keep it a functioning home and reduce the cost of energy.
All right,
Sorry.
thank you. That's okay. Excuse me. All right, so that's the end of our questions, and we are now on our closing statements. So, Angela, since I made you go first last time, I'll let you go last this time. So let's start with Victor. Please give us your closing statement and remind us why we should vote for you.
The only thing I would bring, the experience I would bring to the council is the fact that I have managed anywhere from 50 to a couple of hundred people, employees, successfully manage up to $60 million and stay under budget consistently for as long as I manage those businesses. And also the fact that I do want to represent the constituents that elect me. I want to be able to sit here and actually represent them, listen to what they have to say, and vote according to what they desire me to vote, not on my beliefs and my ideals. My ideals become second to the desires of the electorate. And that's the reason why I believe I will be sitting here next year, because I truly believe that they need to be represented, and that's what their desire is, to be truly represented by their elected members.
All right, perfect timing. Patrick, why should we vote for you?
Yeah, I would encourage folks to vote for me because I, like so many of you, recognize the tremendous possibilities that are posed before Bloomington right now, especially coming out of a period of such uncertainty through the pandemic. As I've alluded to before, Bloomington developed in a really unique way. After World War II, the East Side pops up, and you see it in the physical pattern of the city. Grid pattern streets, little pocket parks. And then into the 70s and 80s, we developed westward, and the very fabric of the city changes. Suddenly, it's big winding roads and cul-de-sacs and larger parks, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But in the 50 years since then, it's put us in a position where we need to make some pretty substantial investments, not only in infrastructure, but in recreation in the east side of town. And I think we've put tremendous tools in place to begin moving forward with that. Whether it's our Gateway Development District to help pool resources, our Parks Master Plan to give us a vision for the next decade of living and playing in the city, or the business support that we're providing to small businesses, large businesses, everything in between. We are poised for tremendous opportunity. Let's seize it together.
All right, nicely done. And last but not least, Angela.
So I am running because I'm an average citizen in Bloomington, and I want to represent the people in Bloomington. I have no desire to further my political career. I don't like the direction that our city is going. I don't feel like our current city council listens to the residents. So there's a lot of residents that I've talked to that are still fighting financially to recoup from the drastic economic hardship of COVID. And our city council wants to raise taxes exponentially year after year. I think that there's a lot of things we can do to look at the current tax base that we have to use and cut a lot of frivolous spending, and that's what I would do. I have experience in managing medical facilities, medical device territories, and keeping costs low and not frivolously spend. I can do a multi-million-dollar conversion and still have money left over in the budget, and that's what our city needs to be doing, instead of making all these changes and that doesn't appeal to our residents.
All right. Well, thank you so much to all of our candidates for being here. I know this is not this is somewhat intimidating sometimes for folks, and we appreciate you coming in, talking to the chamber today, and sharing your vision. So, thanks so much. If you'll join me in giving a round of applause for the candidates. Welcome back to the third and final part of our forum here. We have the three at-large candidates here. So thank you so much to all three of you gentlemen for coming and for running as well, because we need good people to run for office, and you all seem like good people. So with that, just to kind of give you kind of a run a show here, I'm going to give each of you a minute to start with an opening statement about why you're running for office. We'll get into some questions, and then we'll finish out with closing statements. Should be an opportunity for you to kind of wrap up, and then we'll be finished. So with that, thanks again, all of you, for being here, and we'll start with Nathan, since he's first alphabetically. Please give us your opening statement on why you're running for office.
Sure. Well, thank you all for being here. Thanks to the folks who are watching at home, and thank you to my fellow candidates for being here and for putting yourselves forward to serve our community. I'm Nathan Coulter, and I am thrilled to be running for a second term on the Bloomington City Council. I am proud of the work that we've done. I'm excited for the work we have ahead of us. These last few years have not been, I think, what any of us expected, but we've all been challenged to refocus our priorities and just think about things differently. And I continue to be tremendously energized to keep moving forward and taking care of our neighbors. I am really very proud of and happy to talk about all that we've done over the last few years, but I also know that residents and businesses here in Bloomington are expecting to hear about a vision for the future, not just reliving or relitigating the past. I'm really, really excited for this conversation today and for in the coming weeks ahead of us. Thank you.
All right, next question for Paul. Or sorry, not next question. Please give us your opening statement, Paul.
Yeah, my name is Paul King, lifelong resident, 65 years, business owner here in Bloomington and own an office building. I've been pretty active in the community. I was a member of the Bloomington JCs for 20 years, president. Also work with the Courage Kinney Golf League. Just a lot of other community organizations that I've been involved with. I've coached BAA, I've coached traveling, baseball and basketball. We have a popcorn machine that we donate out, actually a couple of popcorn machines that we donate out to civic organizations here in Bloomington. Those in the last 30 years have probably raised $1.5 million for clubs and organizations, so we give back to the community as well. So that's kind of why I'm, a little background on why I'm running, and it's fiscal responsibility.
All right, thank you. And then Ricardo.
Hi, my name's Rick Oliva. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for the other candidates running. I know being on the school board for 4 years, I know it's not always easy to be in office. People, usually most of the fan mail you get isn't telling you how great you are. So that being said, thanks to everybody for running. Lifelong Bloomington resident, not here quite as long as Paul, but I think I have just as much gray hair. Been here 45 years, except for a couple years off at college. Been active in the community, coached BA baseball and traveling baseball, and also served on some school board committees before finally having the opportunity to serve the community on the school board. Served for 4 years, including 1 year as the school board chair. I think that our city council would really benefit from some diversity of opinion on the city council, and I believe that I bring that experience and would appreciate the opportunity to serve our community once again as a city council member.
All right, terrific. And let's start with you. Is it Rick? Do you go by Rick rather than Ricardo? Okay, Rick.
Generally by Rick, yeah.
Okay, well, you'll go by Rick today then. What do you see as the largest issue facing the city of Bloomington?
The largest issue in general. What I see when I'm talking to people and I'm door knocking is a lot of people are telling me that they just want to. There's a lot of division. They feel like a lot of the decisions that the city is doing is dividing the community. They also feel like just leave me alone. Like the city's getting too much into people's personal business. Too many regulations if they own a business. Too many things that are holding them back. Too many regulations. Like I talked to one guy, he said, well, I have 4 cars and I have 2 boats. And now the city, they have regulations about what you can hold in your driveway or if you can be in front of your house and things like that. And I know that we as a community, we need to have rules and standards that we live by, but a lot of people feel that there's too much government overreach and the city's doing too much and getting their hands too deep into people's personal business.
We should all strive to have 4 cars and 2 boats.
Well, the thing is, if you have 3 kids and 2 adults in the house,
How about you, Paul? What do you see as the biggest issue for the city of Bloomington?
The biggest issue I see facing the city of Bloomington is the budget. I was talking to Jack Beloga, retiring council member, and he told me that the budget went from $38 million to $55 million over about a 10-year period. Well, that's a 41% increase. Inflation in that same time frame went up about 19%. And then you start looking at the community that I've lived in my entire life, and we don't have any more roads, we don't have any more parks, and we don't really have any more people than we did 10 years ago. And so fiscal responsibility primarily is my focus. I want to bring down taxes, which makes it more affordable to live here.
All right, Nathan.
Well, I think that's an excellent question. I would say kind of overall the biggest issue that we face as a community is that it is a time of just tremendous change. We are changing at a rate and in ways that we have not seen in Bloomington. And I actually have also lived here my entire life, not quite as long as my fellow candidates here. But we are changing in terms of our demographics, in terms of our economy. Our infrastructure is aging, our streets, our water pipes, our parks. We are just changing in a lot of different ways. And I think that presents a lot of opportunities, but it does present a lot of challenges. And we need leadership that is excited to embrace these opportunities and these challenges and work hard to make things better, because we all value the community. That's why we live here. And there is so much potential, so much opportunity if we have the right leadership.
All right. What professional experience do you bring to, would you bring to this office if you're elected? And let's start with Nathan.
Sure. Well, I guess I would say primarily I bring the experience of governing. For the last 9 years, I worked for and with our Bloomington legislators up at the state capitol, working directly on issues that affect our community, from the 494-35W interchange to bonding requests for the Center for the Arts for the over by Bush Lake, and just the experience of seeing what happens, what the effects of the decisions that elected officials make, what those effects are on real people's lives. And I will tell you this, I'm the one answering the phones when someone calls their state senator. There is not a lack of accountability there. You cannot hide when folks have you on the phone and ask you the tough questions. And you have to be able to talk about what these decisions mean for folks. That's the experience that I bring. That's how I think what folks expect from their government is to be able to understand all sides of the equation, not just what happens within this square footage, but what happens out there too.
All right, same question for Rick. What professional experience do you bring if you're elected?
4 years on the school board, including 1 year as a chair, so governing experience. I've worked in Bloomington, and so I know what some of these decisions affecting businesses from the employee side. Like, for instance, I know that there's earned sick and safe leave that they're discussing right now. I know how that would affect me as an employee, but also as a business owner in the community. I have had my own business as a sole proprietor, teaching music lessons. I also have a music school. And so I have independent contractors that work for me. So I know from a business perspective how these types of regulations and how zoning, where you can set up your music school, where you can do your lessons, how things like that happen. So I have a lot of experience in terms of working, having a business, and also governing.
All right, and same question for Paul.
I've been a business owner since 1985 here in Bloomington, and I've served on the Minneapolis board of the Independent Insurance Agents Association. I also served 7 years on the Minnesota board of the Independent Insurance Agents Association. So I kind of bring a lot of practical knowledge with regard to running a business and or a bigger organization. With that.
All right, thank you. As you've probably noticed, we have a labor shortage in Bloomington and many businesses are struggling to fill roles. What do you think the city can do to help with that? And we'll start with Rick.
Could you repeat that? You said a labor shortage?
Yes.
Some of the things that we can do is make it easier for business, put less restrictions on businesses and remove some of the barriers to entry of business, and also make this a place where people want to come and work and live. I know, like, for instance, I don't know if the earned sick and safe leave will come up later, but if it doesn't, I know as a business owner, if now all of a sudden you increase my costs to hire people, well, now I either have to lower wages or I have to lay off people or I have to raise prices, which makes my business, makes it harder for me to run my business. So those are types of decisions that we have to really pay attention to and make sure that we aren't putting undue burden. I know we also did the tobacco ordinance. For instance, that could cost some people their jobs. I know some people don't care because it's tobacco, but if you work in one of those places, it's going to make a difference for you. So those are the types of things that we need to consider.
All right, Paul, same question.
I think the biggest thing is to reduce taxes. If you bring down spending and you can bring down taxes, it makes it more affordable. And it's not only the tax, it's all those hidden costs. The businesses you do business with, they raise their prices because we're putting an undue burden on taxes on them through the property taxes. And so there's that hidden cost that goes into living in Bloomington with the goods and services you buy within the community. So you got to keep that down, becomes more affordable to live here. The other thing is the city council doesn't need to be sticking their nose into private businesses, safe and sick time, the flavored tobacco ban. And so things like that, I think, just create an undue atmosphere with regard to businesses. And I think that's all I'd have to say on that.
All right, Nathan.
Well, I think this is probably the most important question we're going to get today. And the reality is that we're not going to win a race to the bottom. Bloomington consistently has not only among the lowest property taxes in the Twin Cities metro area, but among the lowest costs of actual government services in the entire Twin Cities metro area. Our levy increase last year was half of what our friends in Richfield, Edina, and Minneapolis saw. And our preliminary levy this year is the lowest of just about any city in Hennepin County. That's just the reality. What we're seeing now is that employees have choice. They have opportunities that they didn't have before in terms of wages and benefits. And what we need to be focusing on is working on the other things, the things that attract qualified, dedicated employees, the folks that we know and live and want to work in Bloomington. That it also, I think, involves touting the benefits of setting up shop here in Bloomington, like Dairy Queen did when they moved their corporate headquarters here, like SICK did when they expanded. There's already significant business over in the South Loop area.
All right, thank you. A question, this is another audience question, and let's start with Nathan. Do you trust and respect the election process in Bloomington?
Absolutely, 100%. Our local election officials are conscientious, dedicated individuals. They have solid training from our staff here and from the folks at the Secretary of State's office. I have complete confidence in our elections. I always have. One of the very first jobs I had was working for a candidate running for Minnesota's Secretary of State. Elections matter. How they're run matters. And I have been consistently impressed with what we've seen here in Bloomington, and I think it shows in the voter turnout that we have and the trust that other folks have in the elections process. I absolutely know that when we see results, we know who won the election.
Same question for Paul.
Yes.
Easy. Same question for Rick.
Yes. However, since we do have a sitting council member and a mayor, this will save me from sending an email because you know the question is going to come up and people are going to question the results. I know if we don't get a winner on election night, there's talk about doing not starting the ranked choice right away. You're going to do it the next day. You might want to put a camera on those ballots or something. Wherever you're storing everything, put it on there just so people know, like no one's bringing in extra ballots because you know it's going to come up. So with that being said, I don't have any reason to believe that it's not going to be. Someone had asked me if I thought it was already rigged. I mean, you can rig election machines. You'd have to have access to the machine. It's not that easy to do. So I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that it's going to be fine, but it's going to come up. So you might want to take mitigation steps ahead of time.
All right. Let's do another question. If you were in an elevator with a CEO and you had 30 seconds to convince them to move their business to Bloomington, what would you tell them? Let's start with Paul.
Location, location, location. You got an airport, you got good highways, transportation. It's huge. Transportation is always huge. And getting in and out of here is easy. We have the hotels along the strip that for conventions and all those kinds of things that a lot of big companies need to put on. And we have a lot of amenities to offer. Back in the day, my dad was mayor in the late 60s, early 70s. He was a big stickler on parks. Every development that went in, they had to offer some parcel of land for a park, and that's why we have so many parks here now. So I think it's the amenities we offer and the location.
Same question for Nathan.
Well, I would also start out by talking about location. Of course, we have access to 35W, 494, Highway 77, 169. We're close to the airport. It is convenient to get around Bloomington, and I've always believed that's one of our less appreciated assets. I think the amenities that we offer here in terms of our parks, 30% of the city of Bloomington is parkland. That's a number that few other communities even get close to. We also have the Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge in town, which if you've never been, it is extraordinary. We have incredible partners to work with, like our local Chamber of Commerce, Normandale Community College, where my mom taught for 39 years, Northwestern Health Sciences University, an incredibly thriving nonprofit scene. The last thing I would say is that listen to what other businesses in Bloomington say. 92% of businesses surveyed said we have a good or excellent business climate. 90% are optimistic about the future, and 87% believe Bloomington's heading in a positive direction.
All right, and then same question for Rick.
Pretty much what all they said. I know as an employee working, having to pay monthly parking in Minneapolis and St. Paul at different jobs, the fact that you don't have to pay $200 a month to park here, it also is a great benefit. So yeah, everything they said.
Let's start with Nathan this time. Many businesses face the issue of their employees, not being able to afford to live in Bloomington. How do you think the city can help address this?
Well, there is nothing more central to people's lives than having a safe, stable, affordable place to call home. And, we need to be clear that Bloomington and the entire Twin Cities Metro and the entire state faced an affordable housing crisis even before the pandemic, and it's gotten that much worse since. Just a few years ago, we adopted our Opportunity Housing Ordinance, and it has revolutionized how not only Bloomington, but other cities think about addressing the affordable housing crisis. And it's not by cutting checks to developers or mindless or unsafe deregulation, but by focusing on the real issues, the real needs that drive up costs. Moving forward, we need to refine and refocus on needs that are still unmet, and we need to ensure a life cycle of housing so that when folks graduate from high school or come out of this service or graduate from college, they have a place to start out, and then they move into a starter home. Maybe they upgrade. Kids move out of the house, they need to downsize. That we have this life cycle and a variety of options and supply.
Same question for Rick.
Some of the things that we have to do is make the houses that are already here, not make them unaffordable. For instance, we talked about, the levy that we're talking about, property tax increase is the lowest in the region, but could we have made it zero? Regardless of if it's lower than what other people are doing, it doesn't matter. It just matters did it have to happen? If it didn't, if there's other things that we could do, other spending that we could cut to keep it at zero, now the houses, all of a sudden, the cost of living here wouldn't be as high. Same thing with, for instance, we have, organics recycling. It's only $6 a month or $7 a month. So yeah, it's $70, $80 a year per house, but you do that 10 times and now it's $1,000 a year per house. If we keep doing these things, if we keep increasing the cost of actually just having a house unnecessarily, then you're going to force housing to be unaffordable instead of just having it be affordable by virtue of not increasing the cost of living.
Okay, and then Paul, if you want to close that one out.
I kind of agree with Rick on most of what he said here. We need to bring down taxes, and by doing that, you make it a lot more affordable because it's not only the property tax that the individual's paying or family's paying, It's also the goods and services they're purchasing within the community that also come down. Because now those businesses don't have to pass those tax increases on to their consumers. And I don't care if it's the grocery store, the gas station, the nail salon, the barber, whoever it might be. They all have to pass these costs on to the individual people that live here in our community.
All right. One of our audience questions, and let's start with Rick. What do you think the responsibilities of city government really are?
Well, I have my notes here. The main role of city government is to do those things that we couldn't easily do ourselves. For instance, I don't want to have to hire my own fire truck in case my house starts on fire, so we have fire departments. I don't want to have to hire my own security team in case I get robbed, right? So we have police. I don't want to have to pave my own sidewalks or fill my own potholes that are outside of the house. So those are the main roles of government, is to do those things for our community that we couldn't do, or you could do it as an individual, but it wouldn't make sense. It makes more sense to do it as a community. Also to create a standard set of rules that we can all live by. If we can all agree that you shouldn't drive 90 miles an hour down Old Shakopee Road, okay, well, let's come up with what should it be. Should it be 30? Should it be 40? Should it be 35? Whatever. Also to take care of those things that the community values. So our parks and, Valley View Park, the Ice Garden, and so forth.
All right. And same question for Nathan.
Well, I heard someone once describe government as simply the name that we give the things that we choose together. And of course, the first role of government is those core basic services where 86 cents of every dollar that you and I send to the city in property taxes goes. Police, fire, public works, parks and recreation, and community development. But I think we need to think beyond that. I don't think when we talk about whether it's businesses locating here or folks coming to move here, they don't just want the bare minimum. They want the other things that build a good quality of life. They're the reason that I grew up here and somehow managed to persuade my wife to move here from St. Paul. That's what folks are looking for. And I think when we hold ourselves to this, only what we need to do, we're short-selling ourselves. And I think we also need to be clear that we do represent the community, and we need to address concerns that come forward from the community. Because if it's an issue to one person, that's still an important issue.
Paul?
I'm Paul.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out if I couldn't remember if I asked you the question yet or not. Sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, I think the city's core responsibility is safety, number one, and that's fire and police. 2 would be roads and infrastructure. And then 3, what I call quality of life. The DMV that they shut down and the parks, things like that. Beyond that, as we seem to get into a lot of social engineering here, which can be done elsewhere, and you just have to look at the BAA has been a need for years. Started in 1954.
What's the BAA?
Bloomington Athletic Association. It's youth sports. They're self-funded. The clock tower, they felt a need for the clock tower, self-funded. A lot of those issues can be done through private and grants and things like that. It doesn't need to be necessarily a city issue.
All right, and then let's make this last question. What opportunities do you see for economic development in Bloomington? And let's start with Rick.
Opportunities for economic development. Well, as I mentioned before, one of the things we need to do is make sure that we aren't over-regulating. Now, yeah, sure, you need regulation. You don't want to throw poison into the water system, things like that. You don't want to build a 50-story skyscraper on the corner of Nicollet Avenue, right? So we do need to have regulation, but making sure that it isn't unnecessary, that the zoning is set properly, so that way it does allow the businesses to move in and do the things that they need to be able to do in order to move forward. I know I've talked to a lot of people that they wanted to put something at a certain location that seemed like it should work out fine, but there wasn't enough parking. So we need to make sure that when we are redeveloping areas that we do have those types of concerns in mind. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity, and we just need to make sure that we sort of get out of the way of innovation instead of trying to over-engineer what has to be in every single pocket of the city.
All right, and same question for Paul.
This community has unlimited potential. Unlimited. It's a great location. It's been a great place to grow up and raise my own family, and now I have grandchildren being raised in this community as well. And I think one of the things we need to do is just get out of the way of business. We keep sticking our fingers in there. Whether it be the flavored tobacco ban or the safe and sick time. Again, we're social engineering where we don't need to social engineer. And just like I said, just kind of get out of the way of business and it'll take care of itself. I'm a diehard capitalist, I guess, at heart. So that's where I'm at.
All right, and then Nathan, do you want to close that question out?
I would say, when folks ask me about businesses and redevelopment, this is probably the question I get asked most often is, what is the city doing? What can we do? Whether it's addressing our aging neighborhood commercial nodes like Old Cedar Avenue and Old Shakopee, 90th and Penn. Penn and American is an example of something we have done. But we have a tremendous opportunity in these locations that are, they're easily they're located well for folks. Folks know where they are. There's just a real opportunity to do something there. The South Loop, I think, is going to continue to be an exciting place for development moving forward. But I think at the end of the day, what we need to be focusing on is what are folks doing now and what are they going to be doing into the future? What are folks looking for when they set up shop here in Bloomington? What can we do to set the table for the future? As an example, we made the process of opening a restaurant easier in the city of Bloomington because folks wanted more local places to eat and drink. We, of course, moved forward on breweries and tap rooms, which is something that I heard about even long before I was elected. We have to do the work.
All right, thank you. Well, that is the end of our questions. Let's go to our closing statements, and I think we had Nathan go first earlier, so we'll have him go last. And Rick, why don't you start with your closing statement? Why should we vote for you?
Sure. So my opening statement is pretty much the same my closing statement is pretty much the same as my opening statement. I've lived here my whole life. I'm raising my kids here. I really love this community, and I'm dedicated to making it as good as it can be. I'm dedicated to public service, as you can see through my service volunteering for the Bloomington Athletic Association and traveling baseball, and also serving on the school board. And so I really would like that opportunity. If you want more information, I don't know if they're going to post it on the YouTube channel, but yeah, I have a website, olivacitycouncil.com. Also on Facebook, you can look me up, Rick Oliva for City Council, or it's facebook.com/Oliva City Council. And so, yeah, my priorities are making sure that everybody has a voice in Bloomington. I know growing up on the east side, now living on west, there's still sort of that back and forth. I want to make sure as an at-large candidate that everyone knows that I can be a voice for everybody. And thank you very much for considering.
Thank you. And Paul?
Primarily, my closing statement's about the same as my opening. Lifelong resident, I love this community. Been involved in a lot of civic activities over the years, and small business owner. I just want to make it as great as possible. But I still believe that there's an awful lot of overreach within the city government, things that should be done at the state and county level, that I think we need to prioritize our safety, fire, police, roads and infrastructure, and our parks. And I think that's key to the entire reason I'm running. I don't need all this extra stuff going on.
All right, and then Nathan, please close us out.
Well, thank you again to the Chamber for hosting this, and Rick and Paul for being here. I think we've highlighted over the course of the morning some really important differences, and I think some things that we agree on as well. At the end of the day, the question that folks in Bloomington face is this: who is qualified to lead, who has been doing the work. I've served on the city council now. I'm excited to continue doing the work. Before I was on the city council, I served on the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. I have done the work, and who's going to focus on continuing to do the work? Who has a vision for where we're going to go over the next not just 5 years, but 10, 20, 50 years, the way folks who have led Bloomington in the past have done? And who is ready to work with business, work with anyone in good faith to work to make our community better? That's what I've done in my time on the city council, and I am ready and eager to continue doing just that. I would be honored to be reelected to serve my hometown on the city council.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our candidates for being here. Please join me in a round of applause for all of them. And I will hand it over to Brent to close up.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Robert, great job moderating. Really appreciate your efforts. And again, a round of applause to all the candidates who are running to put themselves out there to represent the city of Bloomington. It takes a lot to do that, and I'm glad we have competitive races across the contested city council. So thank you all again. So this is, unless you're hiding in Iraq, you probably already know this, but this is the first time in Bloomington that we will have ranked choice voting. So if you still have questions about it, or you know of people who do, I encourage you to go to rankyourvote.org for more information. And I know this has been mentioned that it's an off-year election, but let's have a high turnout. Let's get people involved, because these local races are really important, as we know. There will be a post-event email with links to the recording of this event, as well as other chamber programming. Again, let's thank our series sponsor, Donaldson, for helping with the treats and putting this on. And thank you all for coming and for watching. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Did you know it's an election year? Bloomington residents will now use ranked choice voting in city elections. You may be wondering, what is ranked choice voting? We all use ranked choice voting in making decisions every day, like when deciding what transportation to use, or what activity to do. It works the same way with voting. Instead of choosing just one candidate, you select up to 6 candidates in order of preference. If more than 6 candidates file, you can still only choose your top 6. If less than 6 file, the number of choices, or rankings, will equal the number of candidates. In this example, Maria is trying to decide which Bloomington facility she wants to go to with her friends to participate in an activity they like. Maria loves to swim, so the Family Aquatic Center is her first choice. But if the weather is too cold, her second choice would be the Center for the Arts Galleries, followed by Creekside Community Center to visit friends, and the Bloomington Ice Garden to check out Open Skate. If Maria and her friends marked these decisions on a ballot, they would mark their first, second, third, and fourth decisions, voting left to right and top to bottom, and making only one choice in each box. On Election Day, you will use this same process to rank the candidates on your ballot. These votes are then counted in rounds. In round number 1, all of the first choice votes are counted. If a candidate gets more than 50% of the first choice votes, that candidate is the winner. If no candidate gets more than 50%, the candidate with the least number of first choice votes is eliminated, and their votes are transferred to those voters' next highest choice. Totals are then recalculated, and this process of elimination continues until one candidate has received more than 50% of the votes. Maria and her friends will visit the Center for the Arts. For more information on ranked choice voting and city elections, go to blm.mn/vote.